Interesting, and that is Nature Uganda, that you never fail to enjoy whatever is happening in Uganda, from birds, from every other aspect of nature here in Uganda. We take on the discussion, and probably on set with me is at the epitome of our discussion, our series of events, of discussions that have been happening in Uganda. Youth in politics and development. Which way Uganda to go? In studio with me is Dickson Ampumuza Kagrusi. Welcome to this show.
Thank you, Alan. Dear viewers, good morning. Hope you had a nice weekend.
Somebody would be wondering out there if there is anything that the Ugandan youth could have contributed towards politics in Uganda, but not forgetting about development. What is your view about that?
Before we come to Uganda, let's look at global perspective. Out of 7.5 point something billion of the world population, 1/5 of it is young people. So it's not a question about whether it should be part of politics or development. And we need also to define what is politics. Politics is the management of resources, distribution of resources, all marketing your ideas or views to the people. And if they believe in them, then you take the lead in distributing these resources. So politics and development, you can't separate them.
Yes.
So if any youth out there, you want to participate in developing this country, you must participate in politics. Because the leaders will determine the kind of lifestyle you're going to have. Look at education. It's the leaders are going to determine the policy of education in this country. Look at the UPA. Look at the loan scheme. So youth must participate in politics, because politics leads to development. You have long leaders, development you have gotten it wrong.
It is true we form the biggest percentage of the population anywhere, wherever the population exists, and therefore that brings us to the question, what do you think could have been our contribution to development and politics in this country?
Yeah, now when you come to Uganda, you have talked about we contribute the largest percentage of population. Actually, in Uganda, we contribute 78% of Ugandans are young people, below 30 years. So actually, we are the youngest nation in the world. So it means the youth must participate in all policies or formulation of policies that are going to lead this development. So we need actual affirmative action to involve in the youth. Otherwise, we are getting it wrong. We must get the youth to think for the people. We must get the youth to think for themselves if you're going to develop this nation. Because if you're saying 78% are young people, actually, we have 4.6% of the older people above 60%. And you're saying now 4.6% should think for the 78%. You already get it wrong. So the youth must participate. And we need affirmative action, both from the policymakers and the government, and even us as young people, we must awaken ourselves to be part and parcel of it.
So for the norm of the affirmative action, is that happening, especially in this country?
I don't want to dwell much on the national politics, but I don't think it's happening. When you look at our neighbors in Nairobi, in Kenya, they made a bylaw about 30% of the procurement should go to the young people who have companies.
Interesting.
So that's where we should be going. When you look at the foreign investment coming in here, people are not looking at employment. The affirmative action or the policy should be talking about either 60% of your employees should be Ugandans. There's a telecommunication company, I want to name it. You have seen that almost all Ugandans have been sacked, and they brought in foreign employees. That is very wrong. So if you're going to develop Uganda, you need to bring in these young people. You need to look at foreign investment, even private sector. How many people are they employing? When, for example, look at my workplace where I consult, we had to salary increment almost every year. But when things went bad, they said no salary increment, but let's retain all the employees. Instead of sacking employees, then let's have an average salary, but let's have people in there. I love the president when he talked about capitalizing UDB, Uganda Development Bank.
Yes.
You cannot bring in all the youth now in employment when all companies are private sector, when you have privatized everything. Because you see a private company looks at profit maximization. Therefore, you can't force it. Or even if you have an affirmative policy, you have to beg. For example, you saw Bank of Uganda with this inflation. You saw the governor Mutebere begging banks to reduce the lending rate.
Interest rates.
But now, if you have your own bank as a government, you're able to compete. You either put your rates down and you attract all the customers. Therefore, these private sectors are able to come down to that.
Let's see, for example, because by mention that Dickson Ampumuza wants to stand for presidency today, the other question that lingers in people's minds in this country will be, this is a young boy who cannot lead this country. How better can we drive away from that attitude of many Ugandans?
Thanks, Mark. As we come to the end of the show, I also talk about myself, what I'm doing to see that I come up or I become part and parcel of the development of this country. Most of Ugandans don't understand its history, even including the leaders. You see, we have been brainwashed as young people that to be a leader, you must be in 60, you must be 70. That's very wrong.
You must have a vision.
When you look at the history of leadership action in this country, Milton Obote became the Prime Minister at 37.
Yeah, that's true.
When you look at the people in leadership today, President Museveni was Minister of Defense at 32.
In the Obote II government, yes.
When you look at Kizza Besigye, he was a Minister of Internal Affairs at 29 years. If you look at even the current leaders, look at Kasura Lumumba, the Secretary General of NRM. She entered Parliament at 29 years. So if someone brings up that argument, then we need to educate them. And I think it's our role as journalists, and I want to thank the Rebels for that we must educate our people to know that it's not about the age, it's about the capacity. There are some young people who have developed themselves, we have read, we are exposed. Actually, today, the world presents a better opportunity to educate yourself than yesterday. So we are much exposed than when we were at a young age. So we can't allow that to be ruled by 4.6% when we are there, and we know our aspirations. Yeah.
Well, especially if you just joined us on WBS Morning Fever, Mpumuza Dickson Kagrusi is a consultant in the media, but also in discussing issues in politics and development. Dickson, how would you do this better? By involving yourself or sitting there and watch as Ugandans fail or do it better?
That's a question that I've been having for the last around 8 years, because I've revolved around leadership from secondary, and I kept on seeing, you keep seeing challenges in our communities. We read a lot of books, but however much you have ideas, you don't have a platform to inspire the people, to pass on the knowledge. So I want to invite all young people watching this show. Let's join politics, because as I've told you, you can't separate politics and development. We are the people to determine the policies that are going to govern us. And I'll be offering myself actually in 2016 to replace the former Prime Minister in Kanungu.
Where he's been a member of parliament.
Yes, please.
Interesting, and this comes at a time when the viral message of former Prime Minister's announcement that he wants to stand for presidency. Doesn't that leave that seat vacant?
Yes. However much I'd already identified leadership gap, I started campaigning in 2012.
Did you know that he would declare his presidency?
No. When he came in 1996, when he was elected, there was a person. So to me, it's not about him leaving that seat for me, but I've been there. I've grown up in Kanungu. I know the challenges there, and I feel I have something to offer. If you have been on the ground, I would invite you to come to Chinchills West and see the work I'm doing there in terms of inspiring young people, in terms of revolving around education. Because as I've told you, we are much exposed than what they are. We know different techniques. We have alternative ways of teaching, promoting reading culture. There are certain issues they don't talk about that we know as young people can change our education system, can change our health system.
Is that the best way you could really get yourself involved and doing it better than any other older person? Because we are speaking in the essence of a youth.
Yes, that's what I told you. Because if they are competent people, than me probably I wouldn't. I would have supported them. I'm not joining politics as a selfish person, but I think I have something to offer. And I think I'm well placed to do that with my exposure and the experience I have working in different private companies and civil society organizations. So we are much pressed as young people, and we are talking about 78%, and we are talking about 83% of unemployment of young people. So as a person who has been in employment, at least I have something better to offer to advise my fellow young people about how to go on unemployment. And I've talked about affirmative action in terms of policies. So if I join parliament, we must change the laws. We must look at how do we bring these young people into employment. By looking at foreign investment and also our education system, skilling them to offer the 21st century jobs.
We will obviously conclude this, but have you heard the message from Honorable John Patrick Amama Mbabazi? Does it in any way inspire you that you could vote him as a Ugandan who could lead this country in the next 5 years, come 2016 general election?
Yeah, the good thing he has said is going to stand in NRM. I'm a member of NRM.
Okay.
And I'm not yet a delegate. So I'm not in a better position to speak about whether I'm going to vote him in NRM.
You won't vote him,
so
yes.
let's first see if he wins either NRM primaries and is a flag bearer. Definitely will campaign for him as a member of NRM.
Key in his points, as we conclude, democracy, transparency, economy, promoting equity, and of course the jobs within that fits the 21st century, and as well fighting corruption and respect and observance of law come immediately when he mentions something that he's been looking up to. Let's conclude this conversation with what is your take on that?
It sounds brilliant. I look forward to seeing him campaign. It really sounds brilliant, and as our chairman always talks about the ideologies of NRM, all those things are in the ideologies of NRM. Nationalism, democracy, Pan-Africanism, those are things he's talking about. So I think it will be a very interesting campaign, and I wish the best candidate to win.
Thank you very much, Dixon. Dixon joined us today morning to discuss politics, youth and development, which way Uganda, and probably we will continue day after day as we take on many discussions. But on every Monday we have our youth participating in politics and development in this country, taking the platform, and also maybe later discuss youth and education, business, and a lot more stuff that you could enjoy. Just enjoy the morning flavor that continues with Luze coming up next to take you into the entertainment.